this will be the year that Instagram and video become more like intertwined in conversations. And he
left YouTube to go to Instagram. You're like, hey, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah, the writing's on the wall. Like, I really believe, it's incredible that they have a user base of over 1 billion people, and we're just talking about like video and creators and just, man, I could go on and on about how I believe. And like last week, we just launched this new product that now helps any creator put their IGTV video in feed, which is where people are naturally consuming content. And so people can discover IGTV videos in more intertwined experience as opposed to standalone. So I'm like, it's just crazy what creators are now doing and uploading and seeing like numbers on.
In this episode, we talk with Jon Youshei. Jon is a YouTube marketing guru, business writer, and the creator of a popular workplace cartoon called Every Val. As YouTube's head of creator product marketing, Jon worked with the platform's top stars to grow their communities and create viral content. Today, he works for Instagram as the project marketing manager for the new video platform IGTV. Jon has also been named top marketer by Forbes and Entrepreneur.
This is Creative Disruption, the intersection where entertainment, data, and creativity meet. Here's your hosts, Ricky Ray Butler and Derral Leaves.
All right, welcome back to the Creative Disruption podcast. Now, I really love what we're doing here because we're always talking about the most interesting people in the world that are really disrupting the industry. And we're talking about the industry, we're talking about platforms, but there's one platform right now, Ricky, I'm really, really interested in. I want you to take a guess. What do you think that is? Which platform would that be? And you're going to probably just say YouTube. You always just talk about YouTube stuff.
No. Based on who our guest is, I'm going to make an assumption that you're going to say Instagram.
It's actually TikTok, actually. No,
TikTok's awesome.
No,
awesome.
It really is. It really fascinates me quite a bit. But one thing that I do, I'm really obsessed with data. And part of our show, we talk about the data side of making decisions. Is that what people do? For me, I do a data approach that most people don't do. And I actually learned this from Warren Buffett. Now, Warren Buffett didn't mentor me or anything like that. But, Warren Buffett actually owns the Dairy Queen, chains and so on and so forth. Well, I think he bought that chain for one reason. And it's for market research, 100% for market research. And so he takes
It wasn't to get a return on investment.
Well, I think that he likes ice cream and he likes a hamburger and he'll go from there. But he actually will take his grandkids there. And then he's like, invite your friends. I'm buying. We're going to go to the Dairy Queen. And then he's like the awkward old man at the Dairy Queen. He just buys it and they'll say, hey, thank you so much for buying it. And then he just sits and listens. And one of the things that was really powerful behind this is he's made some very big bullish moves in his space because of what the kids were talking about. So he actually doubled down the equity that they bought in Apple because of a conversation that's happening at Dairy Queen.
Wow, that's interesting.
And it's just he understands that the rising generation. And so for me, I always look at the rising generation. I'm like, okay, where is the rising generation spending their time? And so I have 5 kids, and so I talk with them. I talk with their friends, and they're like, man, you're kind of weird. You're always asking these weird questions. I'm like, this is called data research,
You're trying to pull a Gary Buffett. Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett.
Excuse me. Different person.
But no, seriously, it's I want to know what the pulse is. And it's that audience, when you understand that the rising tide of where they're spending their time is there. And for me, I was like, hey, why don't you, I have a 13-year-old. I'm like, hey, why don't you get a Facebook account? I was like, Dad, Facebook's only for old people and grandparents, And I'm like, okay.
Which is so crazy for me because I remember when it was the new thing.
Oh, yeah.
It was
it was
if you were in MySpace, you were not cool. You had to transfer over to Facebook.
But there is a platform out there that really attracts that younger audience, and it's like a glue. And that is Instagram, 100%. And I talked to them that's how they communicate. They literally have stopped text messaging each other, and they're just doing DMs in Instagram, And most of them don't just have one account; they have multiple accounts. They have accounts that they only want their core group. I don't know if they're breaking terms; they probably are, but their core group of followers to connect with.
Yeah.
But then they have other accounts that they're actually doing more for public. And so it's a really, really interesting demographic. And I think truly Instagram is probably one of the most fascinating platforms because it appeals to multi-generational audiences on a deep level. Now, I know that you guys like you guys help influencers. You bring them money. You work with brands,
right?
And I want to venture to guess, because out of all the platforms you work with, you're probably doing more brand deals on Instagram than any other platform.
It's definitely up there. Absolutely.
Is it up there, or is it the number one? Seriously,
it's close. I mean, I think it is the number one. I mean, I think we get. I mean, it's just one of those things. The gestation period of doing a campaign with creators and influencers on Instagram. It's a much quicker turnaround, but I
bet the engagement's super high too.
The engagement's amazing, and so specifically around Instagram stories. I mean, since the very beginning when they allowed the swipe up, etc., we see a higher click-through rate on Instagram than any other platform, or any other form of content.
Yeah,
like Instagram. I mean, it's very raw, but it's just very credible. For some reason, it seems much more transparent, and where people just feel very confident in what the influencer's talking about. And if the product resonates with them, they have a very high click-through rate. So right now, with ongoing campaigns, when we're doing Instagram stories, we're averaging between a 5% and a 15% click-through rate, which is bonkers.
That's
is crazy.
Just nuts.
I mean, there's no other form of advertising out there, whether it's display advertising or pre-roll ads that can go toe-to-toe with that.
Yeah.
Well, on YouTube, we also have a high click-through rate, but it doesn't compare.
Yeah.
Right now on YouTube with ongoing campaigns, we're seeing between like a 1% and a 3% click-through rate, but Instagram Stories has always just been like the highest, and it's consistent as well.
Yeah, well, what I find fascinating, and we run a lot of ads for the different clients that we have and ourselves, but it's like specifically like what makes a good piece of content. Now you have the influencer side of where they're pushing it, but like from an ad platform, it is getting more interesting where they've been able to blend a lot of the power of Facebook and really segmenting the audiences in Instagram, which has been really, really powerful. Like one of our most highest performing campaigns was coming through an Instagram vertical that we just kind of tapped in, because it's like there's not a lot of brands that are trying to tackle Instagram because they don't get how to advertise. They get the influencer side. Mm-hmm. They don't get the advertisement side of things.
Right. Well, I'm very confident that Instagram is going to be the platform that disrupts TV more than any other platform.
Whoa,
and I know that's a bold
statement.
Let me explain why, because YouTube's obviously doing it, and of course, like Facebook's doing a lot of great stuff as well. But you look at Cardi B, you look at Selena Gomez. People that have over 100 million followers, they do not have a content strategy. When they put that together, they're going to be seeing much higher views than any TV program. And you know what? It's going to make sure that the creators and the artists are, and like, let's see, the actors and actresses, the talent, they're going to be much more empowered, where they become the studios, where they, produce and direct their own content.
That's going to disrupt Hollywood.
They're going to be acting a lot more like the native creators on YouTube and on Instagram. But these people that are like more, traditional or mainstream, they're going to be very disruptive, and it's going to be a pivotal part of.
So it's kind of like what Will Smith
Hollywood.
And Jack Black and The Rock has done.
They're already doing that. Yeah.
So what they've done
Shay
on that,
Mitchell on YouTube,
and now they're translating over. Oh my gosh! Seriously, like that would be super disruptive, because it's like, here's everyone taking their cut, and now the person who's the creator is saying no, I don't need no publishing house or studio taking a cut. I can actually build my own team and do it this way. And then the numbers that they're talking about, I mean, oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
Well, I remember when Instagram was just an image, and it always seemed a little more high end. And I was very confused at first why they were bringing out all these features so quickly, like IGTV or live streaming or stories or video. I remember when they did video, and I don't think anyone was thinking, oh, they're going to put Vine out of business, which they did in like a couple months.
They were like, oh, they're going to try to compete with YouTube, but nobody can find the video. But the play was Vine.
It really is the platform of lifestyle, and where people can show their personalities in different ways, both from a raw perspective and transparent perspective with stories, as well as from a very, beautiful way where they can just show the nice things in life as well, and things that look a little more high end. But I really think it's going to be a huge disruptor ongoing. They're moving so fast, and whenever they go and compete with any other platform, if they bring up like a similar feature, they do it better. And I mean, they did that with Vine, they did that with Snapchat, and immediately people went from one platform and I adopted a new one, because everything just was much better.
Well, and I think a lot to do with the tools, and that's why I'm really excited for today's guest. I mean, there's a lot of people in the industry that we connect with, and there's certain individuals that just get marketing, they get the creation process. I think I would be, I don't know, I don't want to say this to other people out there, but seriously, there's a lot of people that go through the theology, but they don't execute it as a creator. But today, this person not only has worked for a lot of the big platforms and so on, but he's also a creator in his own right. Do you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, I'm super pumped to have Jon join us today. I'm Jon Youshei.
Yeah, you got it, man. That's it. Let's end the interview right now. That's good. You got it. High note. Yeah.
And Jon is the head of marketing for IGTV.
Yep, product marketing, working a lot with creators. Yeah,
a lot of stuff. I mean, you heard us just talk about Instagram and all the great stuff that's happening there.
Before we get into it, look, you just say that, but it's like the resume. Jon, why don't you take a second real quick? Because how I got to know you wasn't through Instagram, it was through YouTube. Like, tell us of a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, before Instagram. And first, thanks so much for having me, guys. I'm super thrilled to be here.
Pleasure.
Just like have a chit chat with you guys. It's always good to kick it. Before Instagram, I was at YouTube for 5 years where I did a lot of things. Most recently led the creator product marketing team, so worked on tools to help creators grow and monetize.
Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, so that's been a lot of fun. But like Derral said, like I love the creator side. I've been lucky enough to be a writer for Forbes and Time Magazine. I have a cartoon series that has blown up on LinkedIn. People like the CEO of Zappos has asked me to put those cartoons in his office in Las Vegas, and like just things I would have never thought as a kid. So as like a creator in text, in cartoons, in video, and also working on the platform side and being at these companies, it's just been fascinating to learn so much and be able to help the ecosystem at large, because I feel like we're so lucky to be alive today and see this shift. Yeah. And to be able to help out with it is just a blessing. So
I mean, could you imagine like knowing a little bit about you and your background, could you imagine that this is actually your path, your course of your career of what you're doing?
If you ask my parents, they're like, oh, you would have done something like tech and art, but I didn't know that. I mean, this wasn't something that existed when I was looking at jobs. And it's funny, like if anybody's listening to this podcast, like you're maybe preparing for a job that doesn't exist right now. Either A, you have to create it, or B, the industry will create it. And you just have to have some faith that, those dots will align.
No, I think there's a lot of people in this day and age that are now experiencing that where, they had no idea, what they were going to do. And then, so much has shifted.
Totally.
When it comes to media, when it comes to technology, when it comes to entertainment.
Totally.
And it's really a level playing field where people can go out there and make amazing things happen.
Yeah, like even before when something that helped me get a job at YouTube is when I was in college, I was running for class president, and everyone's like, talking about their platforms. Nobody cares. It's a popularity contest. So, so I was like,
every politician knows that. Who cares about that?
Well, I hope it has more gravity on like the national levels when people are running for office. But for college, it's a total popularity contest, and people are talking about their policies and platforms. I'm like, dude, nobody cares. I'm going to use this platform called YouTube, and I put up a rap video, and like I wrote out the lyrics. I'm not a great rapper, just really enjoyed. Is it
still online right now?
Still online.
Okay, give me the title. Like we need to all watch this.
You could just look up my last name, Youshei, Youshei, and just look up like class president. And
after the end of this podcast, we're actually gonna play this video, and I will do a reaction to it.
Boom! There you go.
You have good hip hop skills?
I don't. I like to try. If you give me a beatbox, I could also freestyle. But I had a great friend who just would mix beats, and we had a little studio on campus. So we recorded it, put a music video together, and I was like, let's do this YouTube thing. It was super early at that time. The video did really well. I think it got about 10,000 views, which at that time was like pretty hot. And for college, and I did this thing where I was like, I need a star. I need some star power in it. So it was spring break right before this, and I was like, on the hunt for like a star. Just you walk around LA, you see some, and I was at a cafe. I'm like, is that Larry King sitting in the corner of the cafe? And like, so I've like very kindly waited for him to finish his food and all that. And then I went up to him, I was like, Mr. King, I'm a huge fan of you. I love the way you interview. My name is Jon Youshei. I'm running for class president at the University of Pennsylvania. Could you like just record a snippet for me for the opening of my video? Like, yeah, I know what to do. Put on the camera. And I'm like, what? Like, he's like, and so I took out this like I forget what it was, like some kind of power shot camera. Like this is not the day and age of smartphones. I gotta bring out a type of camera. I'm like, okay, and it's like the pro that he is, like the CNN legend that he is. Like Larry's like, vote for Youshei. You know why? Because he's perfect. Vote for Youshei. And that's the beginning of the video.
I am so watching this video.
And then
awesome.
the beat drops, and then boom, and then it goes into it.
Oh
So yeah, I'm very thankful to Larry that I don't think he would agree to that in this day and age and all that, but back then, like, just help the kid out. And
He's a pretty nice guy, though.
He's a very nice guy, and I got elected, got reelected. So I owe, like, again, YouTube started my journey, and when I was going through the interview process way back when, and they didn't even really have a full-fledged creator team, they're like, "Oh, we saw you're a creator. We like that."
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so it helped.
So, like, you've been able to see the industry transform, and you've actually done some pretty amazing projects with YouTube and other companies you worked with.
Yeah.
And you've literally worked with some very high, powerful people. I know that you were on the Obama shoot. And they
Yeah,
did
that
that
was a lot
as
of
well.
fun.
And
Yeah.
you get to see that. But what I want to focus in on, I don't want to necessarily focus in on the platforms of everything, but more the creators and the creative process, and like more the power of the story, the power of storytelling. I know that you have a TED Talk and other training out there that's talking about that.
Yeah.
Kind of take us through the differences, like, you know, from one platform to another, like from YouTube to Instagram. Like, what's the differences behind that? Or isn't there some commonalities in the process of telling a story?
Yeah, so there definitely is. And I think I look at it first on a platform level and then a story level. And I think on a platform level, it's like, what's interesting to see in today's day and age, it's a race to control all formats in one area and close the loop for creators. So I remember when I was at YouTube, we would be like, oh, wow, everyone's doing video here, but they're posting all their tech stuff on Twitter. What's going on? How can we have that exist on YouTube so there's no drop off? Boom. And thus invents the community tab, where now people can post text on YouTube.
But you can't share it. Come on.
Yeah. There's still
A lot of people using it though.
a lot of people using it, and I think YouTube did a great job. Like, we were trying to figure out, when people post that, how can that help add subscribers in the way that a video can, and how can that surface in new places. But I think what's interesting now at Instagram is, like, okay, they've figured out photo, and the difference between a photo creator and video creator is so different. But now they're moving into video and stories, and, like, it's so interesting to see these platforms want to say, okay, we want to be everything to everyone, especially our creators, and just try to have every format so you could have the entire experience on one. It's just been, I always joke, like, from YouTube to Instagram, I joke that I've been playing a basketball game and halftime came and I switched my jersey and I went to the other team, and it's just interesting.
I think too, though, like when a platform that you're working with isn't necessarily in a specific vertical, and they decide, hey, let's open up this option. It's like you can take what you learned at another company, and you can see it's like going back in a time machine and saying, hey, you're going to have the same problems and issues, and we can kind of correct some of those things.
100%.
Like, let's talk about creativity, though. It's like when people are creating content, what to you are some of the elements that they need to succeed, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or whatever? What are some of those elements you think?
Yeah, so to me, the number one thing, whenever I'm helping creators, I'm like, are you focusing on the apple, or are you focusing on the orchard? And I could break down what that means.
Ooh, let's do.
So I think a lot of people talk about the orchard instead of the apple. And so that means, like, if I were to convince you to eat an apple, what would be more convincing? If I told you, hey, this apple's from an orchard that gets X meters of rainfall every year, the soil is this level of fertility, and oh, by the way, there's over 1,000 trees. Would you be convinced by that? Or would you be convinced if I just talked about one apple? I was like, wow, it's red ruby color, it's luscious taste, like, just really, oh my God, like, it's the best apple ever. If I just focused on one, would that be more powerful than the whole sum of, like, explaining a bunch of data? And more often times than not, talking about that apple is much more effective than the orchard, because that apple conveys a greater trend. And I think we see this in culture all the time. Like, not to bring up a negative example, but it is a powerful example. Do you remember that picture of the boy who washed up at sea with the Syrian
that broke my heart.
Heartbreaking. But what's interesting is, like, unfortunately, death tolls in Syria had been rising since then. But if you look at the data, donations to the Red Cross, if you just look at that as a proxy, had plateaued. So you had death tolls rising, donations plateauing. And you'd think, if as human beings we, like, can internalize any piece of data, it's like somebody dying. But even that, it's just hard for us to understand until we saw a photo of that boy washed up at sea. Boom. Donations spiked more than they ever had for the Red Cross on that day. And that just changed things around, which goes to suggest, that boy was the apple to the orchard of the statistics that people couldn't really grapple with. So whenever I talk to a creator, I'm like, what's the apple you're trying to tell the greater story for the orchard? So
yeah, that's very fascinating. And then too, like, how are you going to tell that story in a unique way that will capture their attention and keep them through the whole thing?
Yeah.
Now, like bold creative.
Yeah.
Oh,
100%.
Yeah, and respecting the attention of the viewer. So a lot of another thing, like, I have a big gripe with is like people like, oh, people's attention spans are lower than ever today. No, that's a bunch of BS. People's bar of quality is higher than ever.
Yeah,
that's the way I view it. Like, it's you or season 2 of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Tell me why I should pay attention, right?
I'm more interested in Ricky because he has like
Me too.
It's the beard. It's the
It's
beard.
the beard.
With
It's the beard and the stash. Yeah, I'll take Ricky over any season of Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Thank you. I agree. I agree with both of you. I'm glad that we are all reaching this consensus.
This has been a brand sponsorship for Ricky. Yeah.
Ricky Ray Butler. Well, no, like, I mean, I think you're right. I think the bar has been raised
Big time.
But I think, users today, or like consumers and viewers, they also want to consume a lot more content.
Totally. Yeah.
And it's like if you focus on the apple, you immediately convince them, watch this.
Yeah.
I think one creator that has done a really good job is Mr. Beast.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Where like,
Jimmy is super
I don't know what he's going to do in his next video.
Yeah.
But it's going to be something very bold.
Very bold.
And I'm just going to watch it for that one experience. And yeah, I'll come back to see the rest of the orchard. But every single time I watch a piece of content from him is just all about that piece of content.
Yeah. And what it does is it naturally, just through the suggestion engines and stuff like that, it says, oh, you like that? You've come back. You found it. Let's go ahead and recommend it out there more. But I think, too, it's like, I think I do agree with you, John, in the sense that it's like, okay, yeah, audience retention and their attention spans, it's less than a goldfish. It's like some studies like Microsoft did, but actually they know what good quality content is, and they're looking for those quick dips into the internet to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Like I literally stayed up till 3 a.m. watching a show on Netflix because I could do it. I wanted to binge watch it, even though I had to get up the next day and do it. It's just like, no, there's a series that I actually found that I like, and I'm going to watch it until I fall asleep or whatever it may be.
Yep.
Content's the modern day cocaine. It really is. I think my wife and I will sometimes just binge through content like over a weekend because I travel like 50 to 60% of the time. Yeah. And so we have a lot of the similar tastes. So when we're watching something, we really are dedicated to it. But there gets to points where, when I'm browsing, through, Instagram or YouTube or Netflix, and I'm like, oh man, I've already caught up with everything. And yeah, it's like one of those things that's very addictive.
But I do want to say it's on the platforms too to figure out how to balance that and maintain your well-being too. And I think YouTube and Instagram and a lot of other platforms out there are taking a step in that direction. And I think digital well-being is going to become an even bigger trend this year.
I would agree with that as well. It's just that it is so easy to be sucked in. And I think, if you look back of the power of storytelling from the beginning of history, it's just like they'd sit around the campfire and they'd talk about their big adventures in their hunt. And, they're going through that process of, the hero's journey and all the other stuff that happens. But what I find fascinating is now creators, people that are storytellers, have more resources that are available to tell their stories in a unique way. And it's powerful. Like, I'm seeing things right now that I didn't even think was possible. Yeah. And it's just like, it's so engaging and it sucks you in, and it's a new way of storytelling. John, have you seen anything like that just really inspire you? Like, oh my gosh, this is really pushing the envelope as a creator.
Yeah. To me, I love Matpat stuff. I love film theory, game theory. I think he does a great job. I think he's one of the smartest.
We had Matpat and Steph on here.
It was actually really interesting.
Yeah, they're wonderful. Some of the smartest creators in the game. Got a chance to spend some time with them at YouTube, and just, it's just interesting. Like, I feel that if you want to teach somebody something nowadays, like in terms of science and math, you do have to put it in a more entertaining wrapper, and they do a great job. Like, they had this wonderful episode about SpongeBob SquarePants and like the Punnett square and genetics. Like, I wonder how many teachers around the world are using that video.
Oh,
right?
No joke.
And I think it's on us. Again, it's like it's not that their attention spans are lower. Maybe there's some truth to that, but it's that we got to raise our bar of quality. And we got to do that in our schools. We got to do that at our companies. You got to make people like care and give them a reason to. And I think creators are doing a great job of that.
And I think that, like, at all the social media platforms that are out there, that's what's actually disrupting the education system.
Totally.
It's like, look, I can be educated with MIT or Stanford. I can watch it on YouTube. Or even on a podcast and see these amazing presentations. And people that just want to learn what they want to know, they can find that now online.
Well, that's what I'm consuming right now. Is a lot of the stuff in the education vertical. There's so many content creators out there that just quickly explain to you okay, the Cold War, what you don't know about the Cold War. And then, a lot of different things that are just so fascinating. What are some content creators that you are following right now on Instagram that you feel like are really disrupting that platform?
Yeah, I'm always looking for a good laugh. So I love this guy's name is Anwar. And he has a hilarious IGTV show called One Star with Anwar. And this guy literally buys 1-star products off of Amazon and just reacts to it and breaks it down. And
that's brilliant.
Man, he is so funny. And I think it goes to speak I think it's something that I've seen in my early days at Instagram is people are not oh, what's the difference between IGTV and YouTube? But more so, what's the difference between IGTV and stories?
Yeah.
Because both are vertical formats. And I think Anwar is somebody who has done it well, where he has a format, he has a show on IGTV that people come to expect. And then stories is just those raw moments. And it really made me think, isn't stories one of the best vlogging platforms? If you're really thinking about it,
100%.
It's just the daily stuff, interactivity. And that's
so we had a conversation last night. You know, and I was kind of analyzing some of the things that you do. I overanalyze everything. He says stuff
join the club.
Really
join the club, yeah.
But you brought that same point up last night, and I was like, you know what? You're right. It's you have to be very succinct on what you're trying to get out there, and then there's a time that they have to consume it, and then it's gone. It's literally gone, and it's there's a sense of scarcity that I need to go and connect with my favorite creator or whoever that may be. And I find it really fascinating, but I do find IGTV really, really fascinating. And I'm wondering with Anwar, in that sense, I wonder if the ratings on Amazon actually improved after. Is it more than that?
Yeah, that's funny.
I would assume that people are actually going and checking that out, and maybe leaving a review or whatever.
Have you heard of Aaron Kraskell?
No, tell me more.
Okay, so you should check him out.
Yeah.
So he was originally a Vinester.
Okay.
But he's from here in London.
Yeah.
And he just has all these little skits that he's always coming up with. But we should get him on IGTV.
Yeah.
Maybe he's already doing stuff, but he's one of the most hilarious comedians that I know.
Awesome.
And he's one of my little gems where I was following him since he had 10,000 followers, and now he has, I think, a couple million.
Amazing.
But amazing. But I liked what you said. Instagram stories really is, the best form of vlogging.
Yeah.
I've
without the editing process, because the only thing worse than editing a vlog is doing your taxes.
Some people actually enjoy doing their taxes.
Filing their that's another podcast. But yeah, I'm oh my god, daily vloggers are some of the hardest working people I've ever met. But I think with stories that takes it out of it.
Well, I've stopped watching as much daily vloggers because of just being able to see what's going on with stories.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's more organic.
Totally.
It's more raw. It's more real.
Yeah.
But we were talking about click-through rates, how we see a higher click-through rate when we work with creators on Instagram stories. But when it comes to conversions, we're seeing super high conversions. And it's because whenever there's, a layout or a format where you can be as, authentic and as real and as transparent as possible, it just always ends up, performing better for the brand. And we've seen a lot of brands being able to get not just an increase in clicks or viewership, but actually be able to move product and see sales.
Yeah. Can I give a pro tip on that?
Oh, please.
Okay.
Pro tip by Jon.
So we talked about swipe ups and how that drives a lot of click through. So usually people's standard practice is they have 4 stories that go out, and on the 4th one they're swipe up, right? They build, then they have their call to action. What we've seen is much more effective is if you put a call to action in all 4 stories.
Absolutely.
Really? And swipe up, because you never know when there's going to be a drop off between the ones. Just so always put the swipe up and
that's a really powerful
one.
one.
So people can see it and be able to act on it before they move forward.
Yeah, after doing we've done hundreds or thousands of these. We learned that too, because we're wait, it went from 70,000 views, and it went down to 30,000 of the same people that were watching it. And,
exactly.
And
don't wait till then.
And everything really makes it so higher clicks, but also you also get more conversions.
Absolutely.
So, Jon,
That's awesome.
So, Jon, like for me, okay, we talked about the apple and the orchard. That's
Yeah.
a really good. Is there any other advice you give for creators that really helps them communicate their message to their audience and really engages them?
Yeah, totally. So I think about this. I had to think about this a lot for a course I did on Fiverr to teach marketing. And the other thought I have, the other big lesson that seems to resonate with people is always speak in metaphors. People love metaphors. And I want to say rare metaphors, not the common ones. So think about how many, like, the elephant in the room, that's skyrocketing. There's so many things, like going from soup to nuts. Like, as human beings, we talk in metaphors that have become so common, we forget that they're metaphors. But if you can think of something rare, like, let me give you an example. If I said that, which one of these is more, which one resonates more? If I said, Google is one of the world's best libraries with the world's best librarian that helps you find what you want, right? Or if I told you Google is a search engine that helps you rank like all the different websites around the world and indexes them and shows you the one that's most relevant for you. Which one would be better, right?
Oh, the library, of course.
The library, because it's a metaphor and something that you could relate with. And in fact, that's what I use in my interviews when I was going through the process with Google. And I think it just goes to show that, people want to connect a unfamiliar idea to a familiar idea. And the best way to do that is metaphors. So whenever I'm thinking about, okay, what's a complicated new topic that I need to describe, I always go through this exercise where I'm like, okay, what does this thing go from? So does it help you go from like dirty to clean, right? Or does it help you go from unorganized to organized? And then I think about what are other things that can help you do that as well. Another example of this is The Economist, the publication, was like coming out with this app, right? And they're like, what do we call this app? And the app basically gives you bite-sized pieces of news, like nothing revolutionary, just like a nice like digest. And they're like, okay, like comes out at the beginning of the day, and they're like, okay, so this app helps you go from like uninformed to informed. It helps you go from out of the loop to in the loop, and it helps you go from out of it to like feeling refreshed in the morning. What else helps you do that? What's another metaphor? And like, oh, coffee kind of helps you do that too, during the morning. And so they're like, what do we call this app? So they called it the Espresso app, the Economist Espresso. So it's like also naming extra. It helps with your metaphors and all that. So I'd always think about like, if you're trying to name something, explain something, whatever it may be, find something like that identifies the same to from relationships as something that people already know, and go with that as the metaphor.
So it pulls them even closer in emotionally to the stuff. So like Ricky would be the soft, cuddly, warm blanket of brand marketing.
Boom.
Never do a metaphor with me again.
Yeah.
Come on. You are a creepy old man. Oh, man.
I think I saw that on cover of Forbes. Wasn't that tagline?
No, but I do get the psychology of that. It's like you're really pulling in something that they might react positively or negatively to.
Yeah.
And then you're amplifying.
Why do we as human beings call this new startup the Uber of X or that startup the Airbnb and Y? It's because we need to contextualize in what we already understand. Why do we call that upstart the next Steve Jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like, why can't we just say that they're that individual? No, because as human beings, we're trying to understand based on things we already know. So I think just understanding that has been one of the most powerful things. And like even like we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, apple and orchard, that's just a metaphor.
Yeah. Really powerful. Really powerful.
As a creator, what do you find the most fulfilling?
I think it's the personal messages. Like I always love, like to me, my content is mentorship at scale. Like I think about when I was in college and as I was getting older, I would take coffee with like people like, oh, Jon, like what do I do for this internship? What do I do with my career? Can you look at my resume? All this stuff. And at a point, it just got so much that I'm like, okay, why don't I just write the things that I've been saying over and over and put it out? Why don't I record a video where I say those things and put it out? And that's how I started writing for Forbes. And like, I'm not a writer. I have no writing degree. My parents are from Iran. Like I we spoke Farsi in the household as I was growing up. And, I just started writing, putting these tips in. And now I'm proud to say I have multiple articles for Forbes. I've crossed 1.2 million views.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, write what you want. And like, so I'm like, when you help people and like view your content as mentorship at scale, no matter what the format is, I think that's where the real impact comes, and that's where those messages of like somebody tagged me the other day on my LinkedIn is like, she's in Peoria, just interned at Caterpillar, and was really stuck like in going her senior year of college. Like I read this article that's from Jon that was titled 16 graduation tips that nobody ever talks about. And that was an article I wrote 2-3 years ago, and it's still helping people now. So that warms my heart.
Well, and that to me is like really impressive, because I think that you are a powerful communicator in whatever medium that you want to go after. Because I mean, I've seen you deliver a presentation. That's why I asked you to come to the Vid Summit. I'm like, hey, you need to come to the Vid Summit.
You're talking about the TED presentation?
Oh yeah, it was like off the charts.
That was amazing.
So good. And two, it's just like then you do it through cartoon, and you're doing it through the written word, and now you're doing it for video, and you're going through that. And so like, would you say there is a constant theme? It's like how you communicate and how people resonate, and that's the apple of the orchard. That's also metaphor. Is there any other tip that you would say that would really help people engage an audience or a potential audience?
Yeah, I think a general rule of thumb is, and this may be more for me because I get a bit obsessive. I try to spend hours to respect the seconds that people spend consuming my content. Right? So I think people spend minutes for the seconds. I try to work hours. Like if you see something I put out, a cartoon, I've spent good hours on it. Will you spend 5-10 seconds on it? Maybe at best. And then you move on. I respect that. You're a busy person. If you're a viewer, I appreciate that you took that time out, and hopefully something resonated with you. But I find too many people are like, oh, how can we do this? How can we repackage that? Like, did you actually think about how you want to respect the viewer's attention when you want to do it?
So like that would be in your editing of your articles. That would be the editing of your videos. That would be the editing of how you'd actually have stuff in your cartoon. But it's more the pacing of it.
The pacing and
just make sure that, hey, we're respecting their time. Let's get right to it. Let's cut out the
like
fluff.
For example, so I was writing an article that has now gone out on Forbes. Interview tips. Everyone's written about interview tips. But I was like, how can I write something that hasn't been written before, or say something in a more powerful way? So I read every interview article I could find, went through the first 5-6 pages of Google, went through other like career sites, and just was like, okay, wait, this is like from 1995. That's outdated. Like, like this, what are you talking? Like, so how do I make it more relevant? So I wrote an article called 12 Surprising Job Interview Tips, put it on Forbes. If you now Google job interview tips, that's #1 page on Forbes.
Oh, wow.
1.3 million views on that.
Oh wow.
And it's just, that article took 6 months.
So like, where do you come up?
Yeah,
where 6
do you come
up with your title? Like, I was really impressed of what you actually name your presentation titles, but also your articles.
Yeah.
Like, I was really, really fascinated by that. Like for me, I spend a lot of time on titling and thumbnails and stuff like that. But what's your process of coming up with that?
My process is to eat. EAT. That's what I always think about when I write a headline. And I'll break down what that means. E is the end result you hope to deliver with your piece of content. A is addressing the concern that people may have about that piece of content. And T is the time they'll get that end result in. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to teach somebody you're writing an article to teach somebody to speak French, right? So your end result is, I will teach you to speak French. You're addressing the objection is like, oh, but I don't have money. I don't want to pay for Rosetta Stone. I can't afford a tutor, right? And then your T is like, again, you have to promise this, but like, to get started like in 1 month. So using those EAT like things, you could come up with different headlines. So just coming off the top here. So like, let's say, no money, no problem. Here's a way to learn French in 1 month. There you go. That's a headline.
So here's another one.
Yeah.
No beard, no problem. Grow a beard like
There
Ricky in less than 1 month.
Yeah.
You need that.
But I also wrote another article for that's on my Forbes page that is people want to know how to get an amazing job, but they don't have much experience, right? That's the concern. So I wrote, just put those together. I meant how to get an amazing job without much experience. That was the whole title. Yeah. You talk about the end result you'll deliver, and then you talk about the concern, and then if you can say the time you'll give it in, that's even more of a plus.
Let's talk about the audience, because I think that right there, I think you spend a lot of time like, who's this intended for, right? You're trying to figure out who that audience is, what makes them engage. What's the difference? Because here you're going from one platform, let's say YouTube specifically, into Instagram, and there is a shift in demographic. Like there is a younger, like more Gen Z is on Instagram. like how is the process changed because of the demographic and how you engage with them? Like what are some tips there? Because like at the end of the day, I think a lot of people that are watching this, they're like either a brand or a creator or a marketer, and they're like, okay, like I totally get this audience, I totally get this vertical, I get this avatar, but we're going into this new thing and I can't figure things out.
Yeah. So I can speak from the experience that I've seen so far, like from how what's resonating with my Instagram audience and how I've seen that with creators as well. So I think you have to respect the DNA of a platform anytime you try to get into it. And I think that the DNA of Instagram has obviously started with photos, so it's moved into video now. And for me, like I've been seeing like my Instagram following grow as I just like take more time to get a better shot, to line it up, to think about editing beyond just the filtering tools, and like experimenting with things like double exposure. Like I did this thing before I was coming to VidCon where I took like a picture of like a sunset with the Big Ben and superimposed it on a picture of me speaking, and
I
just
saw that.
Yeah, I love that.
and just like, and there's so many great apps that could help you do this stuff. Like again, like I don't have formal editing background. Like I just started, like I was like, this is what the community cares about and like geeks out over, and like people are like, how did you do that? Can you do a tutorial and all that? So I was like, oh, might as well try it. I don't know if it'll be good, and I just shared the first few with friends, and people like, oh, John, post that up. So I put that up.
So your ski resort one got me.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Ski resort on the beach. That was actually really good.
Thank you.
It was
Yeah,
really good.
yeah. I did this one where I turned a picture of a ski resort into a beach. And to me,
amazing.
to me, it's again, it's the idea of a metaphor. It's like communicating the idea that paradise isn't a place; it's a mindset. And for me, like I find it on a ski mountain. Some people may find it on a beach. But that's where I feel most at home. So I'm like, how can I communicate that in a picture? Because that's like part of the DNA of Instagram. And I found a way to do that and put it up. And it's always interesting seeing the comments and all. So I think it's respecting the DNA of a platform to know where they've been, but also appreciate where they're going with like all the new stuff that we're now doing with IGTV and video and stories.
No, so you guys were both talking about how there's a lot more Gen Z on Instagram than on YouTube. I would also argue, I mean, there's a huge range of demographics.
Oh my gosh.
Where you have like, old school musicians on there that have their following.
Yeah.
Like a Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
He's still alive? I didn't know.
He has an account. That's all I know.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if he is or not. But with that
Ricky
said,
low-key comments on every photo.
I was like, man. Yeah, I keep up to date.
Yeah.
But
He's a groupie.
Yeah. But are there any like demographics or verticals that you guys are noticing that are starting to explode?
Beauty is taking off. A lot of, I think, again, like knowing like where Instagram has been and where it's going. I always joke when I was at YouTube, I started a Silicon Valley company that became a Hollywood company.
Right.
But Instagram is a company that has kind of married that Silicon Valley and Hollywood nature from the beginning. And like I think it's so interesting to see that that's an app that Ariana Grande is using herself, not her handler. Right, she's going the app herself. So when I think about it, it's like what can also help like with that celebrity culture. So I think an account that's doing it really well is Comments by Celebs. And so what they did was they literally have an Instagram account where they show you comments from celebrities on other celebrities' photos.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
wow!
Right. So it's like, think about it. Like we like, come on, let's like, we all love like seeing like how celebrities like go about their lives and especially interact, and also to appreciate and admire each other. Like most of these comments are like great job doing this, or like kind of like celebs joking with one another. So I think that's something that people and especially Gen Z are naturally interested in. So that account has really taken off.
That could be like a new TMZ too. It's like,
yeah,
you could
that's what I was
create
about
that.
to say.
It's like really interesting.
Like, right? I mean, and then this is the thing. Instagram's been very disruptive when it comes to like image licensing online. Like the Get Images of the world.
Yeah.
They're really struggling, and a lot of it's because of all the access people are getting through Instagram. But then also you see the paparazzi world. It's a different business today, and the reason why is these creators and these celebrities are more empowered to upload more content, and are you going to get content from someone that just takes a picture of them on the street, or are you going to go to the source and see it and hear it from the horse's mouth themselves? And it's doing something that's really enabling and empowering people, where they're not having lies spread about them because they're being very transparent themselves about their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can see literally their strategy too. It's like that's what I like to dig into. It's like, okay, you see these articles and you see these videos coming out and you see the pictures that are like leading up, and it's like it has the storyline and you know what's going to happen next, even though that you don't know it, but it's going to happen next. And sure enough, it happens. And that's where it gets really interesting, is that the power of storytelling, through multiple days and multiple posts. It's just not that one post. It's like this whole thing that comes together and really is combined in a very powerful strategy. So so I know we've gone over a lot. And one of the things that we talk on the podcast is like things that are really disrupting the industry. And Ricky and I would like to banter on this quite a bit, but like from your perspective, what's interesting this year and what are you the most excited about that's really disrupting the world?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I'm biased because I think of a lot of things, but I think that this will be the year that Instagram and video become more like intertwined in conversations. And I could go on and on about
you're not
IGTV.
Biased. You left YouTube to go to Instagram. You're like, hey, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah, the writing's on the wall. Like I really believe, it's incredible that they have a user base of over 1 billion people, and we're just talking about like video and creators and just man, I could go on and on about how I believe. And like last week, we just launched this new product that now helps any creator put their IGTV video in feed, which is where people are naturally consuming content. And so people can discover IGTV videos in more intertwined experience as opposed to standalone. So I'm like, it's just crazy what creators are now doing and uploading and seeing like numbers on.
I was really fearful when Facebook actually purchased Instagram because Facebook can be bloated in certain areas. But I've been really impressed with Instagram that it kept its culture and it knows what it does, and it's not trying to be the end all for everything. But it's just more about content consumption.
Yeah, and its design. Like to me, something that always blows me away about Instagram is our design reviews and our design team. Like they are so methodical to make sure anything new fits in with the structure, and it's just a beautiful experience. I'm like, oh, not every other app out there thinks the way they do in terms of just making sure that the user has a seamless experience. So the content is the hero, right?
Yeah.
Someone that I consider a pioneer when it comes to Instagram video is Zach King.
Oh yeah.
He's a good friend of mine.
Zach is amazing.
Are you noticing there's more trends to have similar content that he has? Because he's really, the first ones to come in and like make really high quality content that's very engaging.
Oh
and
yeah.
fits really well in the Instagram platform.
And Zach to me is the embodiment of somebody who spends hours for seconds of your time.
Yeah.
Like the editing, I rewatch his stuff and I'm like, how did he do that? Like he is a true magician in today's day and age and uses editing like very few creators I've seen. But I think we're seeing like a lot of like we're seeing editing like that. I don't know to that level. I think Zach is a very unique individual, but a lot of comedy, a lot of skits, a lot of DIY, a lot of makeup tutorials, a lot of people showing like room tours, hotel tours. I think we're still in the early days of figuring out like what formats are going to take off on IGTV. One thing I think that's really interesting that's unique to Instagram is we're seeing these like choose your own adventure vlogs where people use stories and poll stickers to be like, hey, what should I do today? Go to the beach, go to the mall. And then they kind of let the audience choose what they do in real time on their stories, package up those videos, record it, put it up as an IGTV video.
Just as long as it doesn't go down like Bandersnatch route where they're like, should I jump off this or hit them with the hammer?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, seriously.
Well, we talked about in the past how Bandersnatch is going to change product placement and integration forever.
Yeah.
We're already pushing this with our clients to do choose your own adventure, type stories. Be part of those with creators.
Yeah, because what do they have? Frosties in there? Like what? Like when you chose? I thought it was very
like some like Cocoa Puffs or Frosties.
Yeah. Some generic brand versus.
But
it's well done.
But a big side of our business, we do a lot of influencer engagement and activations, but we're also the biggest company in the world that does product placement or, when it comes to series or TV, et cetera.
We're still waiting for product placement for this podcast.
Yes. I think that's a compliment.
We got to get more numbers up.
But I think you're too controversial. I think we're already blacklisted by the company. but it's one of those things where it's going to get a lot more engaging and it's getting a lot more powerful. And when brands come in the right way, where they empower the content and embrace the authenticity and the consistent programming, and they're just there to be an empowerment, it's going to be huge. And one thing I think about a lot, and I think this is going to be something that's going to be touching Instagram more, it's going to be touching YouTube more, and on all the video platforms, is VR. And what's going to happen with VR. I think right now, everyone talks about, I think everyone thinks VR is already huge, and it's not. And it's not going to be huge until there's proper proper distribution.
Yeah.
And then also the cost needs to come down.
Yeah, the cost needs to come down.
But here's an interesting thing, and I think like if I was looking at the future of Instagram, it's like the next natural step is like, okay, let's solidify what we have.
Yeah.
But having AR elements that could be in-app purchase or whatever, and that could take it to a completely different level. Like it's totally built for it.
Yeah.
Or
John,
where you can be with VR, be in a story, and be in the room with the creator. And truly, it's one of those things where creators are known or influencers are known of being, something much more than just, a celebrity.
Right. Or they could watch the Lakers game with
that's what I think is cool.
Being able to be in there and engage, it's going to create even higher engagement and higher loyalty.
Yeah. So, John, let me ask you, like, we do have a lot of brands that are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. What advice would you give them, when thinking about, hey, we want to do something on Instagram? Like, what advice would you say content-wise or, influencer-wise that they should do?
Yeah, the way I think about it is like, so think long-term, not one-offs. Like, I think great relationships are developed when brands want to do multiple videos in a series or work with a creator on a long-term basis, not one-off. Samsung, Casey Neistat, perfect example. And giving him the license to continue to do stuff that, feels native to Casey and feels native to Samsung, where I'd say he's very much an ambassador of the brand and has elevated their profile as well in terms of being like, they want to, like, I never thought about Samsung as a brand that wants to do stuff for creators until they aligned with a bunch of creators and kind of let them do their thing. And I think they have a showcase as well. Like in New York, they have an event where they bring a lot of creators out as well and just put them on stage and let them speak. Very smart strategy. Would never happen if they were like, okay, we just need one video with a call to action at the end, right? Very different. I think Dietrich is this wonderful like vlog. You know Dietrich
very well.
Yeah.
We did a lot of early days YouTube. Like, Just Dance.
Yeah. He's just like such a wonderful talent, and like him and Mountain Dew is another example. Like he did a lot of great stuff with Mountain Dew. Was just a fan of it. Like would talk about it, and like the ongoing nature of like that relationship too is something that shows like, okay, if you're here as a brand for the long term, not the short term, you'll see a lot of payoff. There's a lot of other nitty gritty we could get into, like, okay, the actual relationship, the feedback on the creative, but that to me is like the number one.
I agree with that. I think it's a kind of a balance of both though. Brands need to stop thinking of just working with a few, but realizing that there's hundreds or even thousands out there. Like every year there's thousands of up and coming high growth influencers.
Oh yeah.
And so one thing that we say, you know what, you got to find those creators that are going to be brand advocates. They're going to be working with you for the long haul.
Yeah.
But what you do is you work with a good variety.
Yeah.
And then you do a postmortem and just say, okay, who performed the best? Who was truly passionate about the brand?
Yeah.
Who was the easiest to work with?
Yeah.
And then you put together a couple year contract and do that. But then,
it's smart.
But there's a good chance that creator in a couple of years or in a year might not be the same creator.
Yep.
Or they might change. And so it's always about making sure you have something that scales, but you're always funneling that pool.
Yep.
Knowing that, okay, who are the other creators that are up and coming that are going to be big supporters for the brand?
100%. And I also think
it's like a data-driven approach.
I think that's super smart. Like help, work with a bunch of creators, see which ones take off. I think another thing I always encourage brands to think about as I work with them and creators is like, okay, money isn't your only form of currency. Content is currency. Right. Can you give an experience to the creator? Can you come up with an idea for a challenge? Like the more that you could speak their language, because let's be honest, like they're coming up and stressing about what their next video is going to be. So if you come up with a treatment of like, here's 3 options of what your next videos could be based on us studying your past 10, 15, you'll be in the 1% of brands who
that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Well, John, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. It's always just a pleasure. Like we could go do this for hours. Like seriously.
We gotta do this again.
Like, we definitely
we'll make it like a 5-hour podcast.
definitely need to do. But is there any last thoughts that you have for our listeners here, or anything that you'd like to? You want to run for governor or anything like that?
No. I think if you're a creator and you're listening, don't be shy. Like, I think there's something like within everyone that's like, I have something to say, and just don't quiet that voice. And if you're a brand, like, just keep it real with your audience, and don't be afraid to try something new and involve a creator and give them license to, take it to the next level. But I just think the biggest thing is like, there's a lot of stuff going in the media today. A lot of people are talking why this day and age is so bad. bad. But come on, if we focus on a lot of the good things and still a lot of room to fix, like, let's be honest, like, we're very lucky to be alive right now. We're very lucky to see this transition right before our eyes. We're very lucky to see this transition happen, not on one platform, but other platforms where we have a second and third chance to try to get in on the gold rush. And if you're not getting in on it now, then you're missing out. So I say count your blessings and just get in on it before it's too late.
What Jon said, go disrupt the world. Thanks, everybody, for watching.